I don't want you to get like too deep into this because I know it's very personal, but your dad had a history with sports gambling.
Yes.
And I know now in this day and age, what we're starting to see is so prevalent. Sports wagering, betting, gambling, it's advertised with, not in California because it's not legal here in the state, but pretty much everywhere else. What's your thoughts on the emergence of sports gambling? And like I said, how frequent it is right in front of the consumer, and does it matter? Is that a bad thing, a good thing? Should anybody care?
My thoughts on this were delivered on HBO a couple of years ago. It's on YouTube. If you just put in Bob Costas on sports betting or sports gambling, it's a 5 or 6 minute commentary that takes into account my own personal history with gambling. I looked at my dad as a colorful, kind of Runyon-esque character. And I learned a lot about sports just by hanging around with him, because he didn't bet on cards or crap games or go to the racetrack. He bet on games. And so not only was I following the games with him, but he would often send me out to the car in the driveway where the reception was better than in the house, because you didn't have sports phone or ESPN or the internet, obviously. And if he bet on the Tigers and it wasn't on TV on Long Island, I had to go find Ernie Harwell on WJR and then come back and report the scores. And by osmosis, what that became was, I'm like 10, 11 years old. Hey, Bob Prince sounds different in Pittsburgh than Chuck Thompson in Baltimore, or Ernie Harwell in Detroit, or Jack Buck and Harry Carey in St. Louis. And they're all different, but they're all good in different ways. In addition to Mel Allen and Red Barber and Lindsey Nelson, who I was listening to in New York. So I think that's where I caught the sportscasting bug. But the bottom line, I think, on the gambling part is this. If in the big picture, the house didn't always come out in front, if over time and as a group, gamblers didn't lose much more than they win, then DraftKings, BetMGM, whatever it is, FanDuel, none of that would exist any more than Nathan Detroit's traveling crap game would exist, or any casino or racetrack would exist. Now, if knowing that, you go into it with, this is how much I'm going to Vegas or whatever it is, this is how much I'm willing to lose, I'll have a good time, that's fine. But just be aware. And also be aware that when they say, hey, the first $200 is free, that is a high-tech gambling site version of the pusher in the alley.
Right.
Hey, kid, first one's free.
Right.
He's hoping to hook you.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same stuff that's been happening for years. It's happening, though, in a new way, and it's so much more accessible. We talked about phones earlier, the fact that it's right in front of you.
Yes.
I'm watching a game. I can't stop myself. It's a societal problem that I think we're just kind of realizing we've never been here before, though. It's like I said, it's a lot of the same things. They're just presented in new ways. And I just think it's something for, the sports community to pay attention to, because we just haven't gotten deep in it yet.
In fairness, Brody, they're still maintaining the same rules pertaining to betting on the sport you're involved in as existed previously. That's their answer about how can this be sponsored by DraftKings, but Pete Rose has never been on the ballot. And in fairness, there have been instances in baseball. There's one with an umpire that broke justice.
Pat Hoberg just got fired. Baseball's most accurate home plate umpire called the perfect game in the 2022 World Series, 127 balls and strikes, 1,000% accurate, fired because he was sharing a sports betting account. Why even do, could he not stop himself from doing that?
It's stupid. And he wasn't betting on baseball.
That's what he said. So he said his friend was, the account was, but he said he wasn't.
Yes, right. So, which is dubious. But we've seen suspensions in the NFL.
Right.
We saw the situation with the player with the Toronto Raptors.
In the NBA.
Which is really a serious one.
Yeah.
Because those prop bets fly under the radar.
Right.
For the most part. So he's like a fringe player.
Right.
Maybe the over-under on how many points he'll score in the game is 5 or 6.
Right.
He comes into the game. He either gets in foul trouble on purpose or feigns a minor injury, goes out of the game.
Right, exactly, right.
And his associates have bet the under. The leagues have to be even more vigilant than ever. Yeah. But in fairness, even as they glom on to all this money, that this new source of revenue that gambling provides, they haven't budged really in their proclaimed standard. if you're involved in this sport in any way, official, umpire, manager, coach, whatever,
Yeah.
it's at least a year's suspension. I think in baseball it is a year's suspension if you bet on games you're not involved in, and it's still a Pete Rose, Joe Jackson standard. If you bet on games you are involved in, lifetime banishment.